complete rubbish.
Why?
There's nothing in it at all that a child couldn't see.
Gosh.
Suitability and
we've seen 12 plus for the most awful word in the English language.
Now, the interesting thing is, when you come to the Fringe, if you've not looked at the Fringe player, you have to agree that nobody is watching this below 16 plus, which is just bizarre. Hello YouTube, we're back again. If you haven't been here before, we're Ian and Jane and we're reviewing a lot of what's been going on at Edinburgh Festival Fringe here in 2021. And we've just seen Bach'n'Roll, the unconventional life of Virgil Fox.
This is the story of a rebel in the classical music world. You know, classical music concerts even today are normally very solemn, stately events. The artist takes the stage, plays the printed program, bows, and leaves. Well, Virgil Fox would have nothing to do with this kind of formality. When Virgil took the stage, he would chit-chat with the audience, tell jokes, share anecdotes, share his thoughts about the music. That simple and really meaningless break with tradition earned Virgil the disdain of critics and the adoration of countless fans.
Now this was Jane's choice. I completely missed this one somehow. Do you want to just read the blurb, Jay?
Yeah, so the blurb in the programme says, in 1970, Virgil Fox played the music of J.S. Bach at the Mecca of rock and roll, Fillmore East. The audience responded to Virgil's exuberant playing with applause, cheers and dancing. Thus began the most unconventional classical music tour ever, Heavy Organ. Loved by fans and hated by critics, Virgil Fox left an indelible mark on classical music. His vibrant approach to the organ still inspires musicians today. Tony Imperatrice uses narrative and live music performance to take us back in time when the organ was king and Virgil Fox was the king of organists.
I'd never heard of Virgil Fox. I'm pretty sure you haven't heard either. And
nope.
This was it's an incredible story because he was a rock and roll classical organist, really, wasn't he? He wore bright sort of suits and was it
frilly?
what was his shoes?
Diamond studded or crusted shoes or something,
and frilly shirts, and he was it sounds like he was a real showman. And what I thought was nice about this is that Tony, apart from just telling us the story, demonstrated by playing organ pieces, and it was really quite nice to be able to actually sit and watch somebody.
The way that the camera
the camera angles were.
I mean, to see his feet
and all his hands, the whole thing.
Because I've seen several organ recitals in the past in all sorts of venues, and even when you're quite close, because I suppose the one is here in the local church, we've seen a few. And because you're sat right behind the organist, you can see his feet moving, but you still don't appreciate what he's actually doing until you've seen the camera footage of Tony playing the pieces and what exactly he does with his feet, and how on earth you play a completely different bass line with your feet when you're doing something else.
It's like tap dancing almost, because it's toe and heel, isn't it? It's
absolutely fascinating.
I mean, and the way that his hands would move over the four keyboards was just phenomenal, because the angle was there was a couple of angles. There was the lower angle of his feet, but there was two angles. And like Jane says, normally when you see an organist in a recital, you pretty much see the back of their heads, and you can't really tell what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you can be quite close, but you still don't get those angles.
No, you don't.
And the sight of what...
Because you're in the back of his head.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
So this is 45 minutes. Now, it seems to be limited in what you can see. It started at 7 o'clock this evening, 45 minutes. The next version that we're aware of is the 25th of August. Again, it will probably start at 7 o'clock. It's not expensive. It's £4 with a £2 concession. And, I mean, for me, it wasn't really long enough. I wanted more.
Well, I would like to say more about that.
Okay then, go on then.
Well, I picked it because its genre is theatre, in brackets, music, storytelling. And I thought, that'll be quite an interesting mix. I hadn't heard of Virgil Fox. I didn't know that he was a real person.
Yeah.
Until I watched it tonight. But I was expecting not this.
You're expecting theatre?
I was expecting theatre. Now, I'm not saying, I didn't like what I saw, because that was fine. But I wouldn't class it as theatre.
No, neither would I.
Because Tony tells the story, and Ian's actually already said, he tells the very straightforward story of Virgil, except he wasn't.
He does it very well.
He wasn't. He wasn't a straightforward chap.
No, it's just talking head to camera, isn't it?
Yeah. So he just tells his story, his life story, and then plays some of the tunes that he's played. Now, my issue is that throughout the retelling of the story of his life, he explains that he was this showman, that as it says in the blurb, he upset the critics, all the classical organists didn't like him, but he went down fantastically well with the public. He played to sell-out concerts. He then did this amazing heavy rock and roll thing. It went down an absolute storm, and he did huge tours. I mean, he obviously absolutely worked and worked and worked. So he keeps talking about this, and I keep thinking,
you want to see him?
So we're going to see him, and we're going to see just a little bit of this theatrical man, this showman. But we didn't even have a photograph of him.
That's the point. You could have had a photo, couldn't you?
There was no photograph of him. There was absolutely no coverage of his music. And I began to feel a little bit frustrated. So I'm afraid by the end of the 3/4 of an hour, I was already on YouTube seeing, well, maybe there's an embargo. Maybe you can't see this guy.
Can I just say something about that? Because I understand why Tony hasn't used any of the original recordings, because they will be embargoed by the fact is that the licensing of that will probably be prohibitive, in the sense that he was signed to a major record label. Those recordings are still published. They're still, you can probably listen to them on Spotify and Apple Music. So that I understand why that. I have actually found a very dodgy, fuzzy bit of the end of the heavy organ concert at the Fillmore. And I'm not going to play any of the music, but just to give you an idea, I'll try and put the last few bars in so that you can see the light show. I'll probably do the light show without the music.
It's phenomenal.
And then there's a little bit with Tony, and you sort of get the feel of what he was like, because and he's an elderly gentleman by this time.
Yeah.
And
I was becoming increasingly frustrated, thinking, please, I need to see.
Yeah,
even if it's a picture of this guy, please show me a picture of this guy.
But I did look him up on Wikipedia.
I know, and that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
But
Now you can do that at home.
And I had worked it out for myself
Yeah.
that it was probably due to copyright. But Tony, please just
Picture would do it.
can you work in one sentence saying I cannot show you any of him playing because I'm not allowed to, because then I would have relaxed and thought that's okay, I can then find out. But I was just thinking, oh, we're going to get a bit now, and we didn't, and I feel a bit disloyal saying that, because Tony's playing was fantastic.
Tony's an amazing,
and I enjoyed it
player.
For, a sort of concert of organ music in that sense, but that's sort of, and I don't mean to belittle it, because that's not what my intention, but I just felt that theatre was a bit of a misnomer, and
it's not theatre. I'm with you on that.
And I may not have sort of picked it, but having said that, I'm glad I did.
I'm glad you did. Yeah,
I'm glad I did, because I knew nothing about Virgil Fox.
Yeah,
I enjoyed hearing, the organ being played, and it was something very different from all the stuff that.
Yeah, and I don't think. I mean, I'm not necessarily a fan of organ music or an awful lot of classical music, but I don't think that's really a worry here. Anybody could enjoy this, because the storytelling alone I thought was very strong.
No, it is
the music that, I mean, it's really. How many pieces did he play? He played about 5 pieces.
I was going to say 5.
So it's not 45-minute concerts.
No,
no,
it isn't.
The one thing that I find rather weird. Sorry, that was my phone, is it? You should have turned my phone off.
I've turned mine off.
Yeah. It says suitability 16 plus. Complete rubbish.
Why?
There's nothing in it at all that a child couldn't see.
Gosh.
Suitability, and
we've seen 12 plus for the most awful word in the English language.
Now, the interesting thing is, when you come to the Fringe, if you've not looked at the Fringe player, you have to agree that nobody is watching this below 16 plus, which is just bizarre, really. And I don't know why that is. I think that's a mistake, not by Tony, but by the software,
because
there's nowhere on earth. I mean, I'd be quite happy to let my kids watch this if they were interested, if they're into music,
if they were very young. Some of the ages on these we've said before is wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they're allowing some. Well, we won't go there again.
Now, the interesting thing as well, the first piece that he plays is Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor, which I did learn when I first started, because I first learnt to play in bands on a Hammond organ in a workingman's club, and I played Toccata and Fugue very badly for years, but it was actually quite nice to see somebody play it properly. I thought it was great. Anyway, for definitely, and there may be other scheduled sessions, and certainly, I mean, there's a link to Tony's website which we'll put in as well, so it may be available outside of the Fringe. It's definitely worth seeing. 25th is the next one, £4. It's a no-brainer, really. 7 o'clock in the evening, and I tried to log on before, and it would just have a countdown, and then we started it just after 7 o'clock. So I don't think you're stuck to it being bang on 7 o'clock.
No.
And I don't know how long I've got it for. I might try and
start it again.
Maybe try and capture a couple of images so that you get a feel of it, actually while we've been talking about it. But we'll try that a bit later on. For me, it's a 4-star.
I would say a 3, but we'll go up to a 4.
Yeah. It's a good 45 minutes. I wasn't bored. I wanted more of it, really. But anyway, there we are. So thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next time. I think this is show 32.
I've lost count.
You've lost count.
Well,
I said 28, and that 28 was 30.
Oh, was it?
That was
and
it.
You've done an extra one on your own.
So far.
So I don't know. We're 30 something.
Which isn't out yet.
Yeah.
So we'll see about that. And they might not be put out in the right order either, because I'm still doing some research on that one.
I think we'll stop saying numbers.
No, I like the numbers. Numbers is all right. Don't worry about the numbers. I'll do the numbers. But I will get my numbers right in future. So thanks so much for watching. If you want to subscribe and all that stuff, you know what to do. And we'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bach has a universal mind, an overwhelming heart, and a transcendental spirit, and you can't beat that. Once you've had a view of Bach, you never again will be the same.
It takes an entire day to set up the 1.5 tons of equipment known as Revelation lights. It's all the creation of David Snyder, who calls himself the world's only classical lumièriste, a word he invented himself from the French word for light.
The timing element of what I do is very important, because if I lag, if I am too slow, then it gives the person that is watching the idea that I am following up a sound that Virgil Fox is making, and I don't like to give this impression. I like to be right along with him because it is a simultaneous performance.
Everything that happens on that screen is a further enunciation of what the music is doing. You see, Bach is the one composer that can take any amount of color and any amount of shape and exaggeration, if you please, of the enunciation. He is a cathedral builder in sound.
I think that the Bach saw thing is music is vibration, light is vibration, and to listen to sound somewhere inside of you, it has to strike your imagination. I think Bach would be delighted.
There is a plan, you see, where we would like to get smell and taste and touch involved in what we do with the sight and the hearing. At a moment like that, I think the human would just have to absolutely give in, let go, because the trip is on. open warfare with a gang of creeps who call themselves purists. You want to know who they are? I'll tell you who they are. They're the ones that talk about it but can't do it. These oddballs call it the little fugue. They put on an 8 and a 2-foot stop. You don't know what that means, but it's just a poop on one end and a poop on the other. And they sit there playing their little typewriters like note-pushing nobodies during this piece. I'm going to give you the theme of the short G minor, and you decide whether this is heroic stuff or whether they are right. Here's the tune. As if all the music in the world could possibly be lined up on this side. And then Bach, the greatest composer of all, stuck over here in some kind of a glass case in a museum under dust next to a comb that some dead queen wore in her hair 3,000 years ago. Not on your life. The sermon is over. We're about to start with the real thing. I don't talk about it. I propose to get on that machine and do it. You see, the purists are a gang of absolute creeps who hide behind their little squeaky conversations about the limitations of 200 years ago. The mainstream of life is going right past them. They don't have blood in their veins, they have water. They're a bunch of four-flushing fakes. And when these critics take lambasting at me, they do it for one reason. They are little unknown nobodies, and they say things to attract attention to themselves. My Bach is alive. The purist Bach is dead. They sit around and say, well, of course, what Fox plays is not Bach. They are 100% in error. I make it exactly as Bach wrote it, and I give it color, and I give it gut. There's no point in standing around being modest about it. I'm not modest. I know that I can do the thing that I tell them I'm going to do. And I sit down and jolly well do it. It is a trip, and the difference between my trip and anybody else's is that I come out clean.